Hello, I'm Nima Rajan, and welcome to Northwest Newsweek. More details are coming to light about a fatal industrial accident just west of Marathon Wednesday afternoon. It happened at a work site along Highway 17 at Angler Creek. OPP say a 61-year-old man from the Sudbury area was pronounced dead at the scene. His name has not been released. The Ministry of Labor had an inspector at the worksite on Thursday taking statements from eyewitnesses. Reports indicate that the man was installing a temporary steel bridge when the bridge shifted and pinned him. The highway was completely closed for several hours Wednesday night as a crane was brought in to lift the bridge and recover the victim. The ministry says one compliance order has been issued against the company, Belanger Construction, based in Chelmsford, Ontario, but no details about the order or its impact on the project moving forward are being released. Officials in Fort Frances are livid after details about an agreement between Resolute Forest Products and the purchaser of the town's mill were made public this week. An early morning news conference was held at the town hall on Tuesday to address the unsettling revelation that restarting the mill may be impossible. Adam Riley reports.
After it was sold last month, there seemed to be a ray of hope for the future of the former Resolute Pulp and Paper Mill in Fort Frances. But now a revelation nobody in the community ever wanted to hear.
A restrictive covenant was placed on the mill property prohibiting a future owner from influencing their own province for a period of 10 years.
Flanked by members of council, Mayor June Call laid out even more bombshell details regarding the mill and its sale to River's Edge Developments, including the issue of a $23 million grant which was given to Resolute by the province prior to the shutdown and quietly waived by the previous government. Call also claimed the sale price of the facility was just $1, a claim Resolute Vice President Seth Kurtzman adamantly denies.
I'm not sure where they're getting their information from, but the mill was sold for a sum of about $1 million, not $1.
Councillor Douglas Judson says the town is currently seeking legal advice as to how to proceed, adding council is very concerned as to the non-competition covenant.
You often think of a non-competition clause in the sense of, I am selling you something and I am not going to go and compete with you in the same business. This is the other way around. I'm selling you a car, but you can't use it as a car.
Call and her council are also concerned over a $3.5 million mortgage on the property by a scrap metal company based out of Southern Ontario called Combined Metal Industries. She says that, coupled with the low purchase price and the non-compete clause, makes the situation very clear.
It would appear to us that Resolute intends to destroy the mill, sink the public investment, and remove the economic engine of our district. This is corporate conduct that should be condemned and penalized.
Call also notes the whole situation ultimately revolves around the wood supply. The new owner of the mill, Justice Veldman, was not at Tuesday's press conference. However, he did release this document, claiming a large-scale cannabis operation would be likely in Fort Frances. Area MPP Greg Rickford was also not present. However, Call says he has spoken with her and will be meeting with Resolute officials in Toronto on Wednesday. Adam Riley, TBT News.
Kenora MPP Greg Rickford has released a statement regarding his meeting with Resolute Forest Products on Wednesday, and it's about the controversial sale of the Fort Frances mill. Rickford says he expressed his frustrations and serious concerns about the terms of the sale, which prevent the buyer from using it as a pulp or paper mill for 10 years. He also spoke to the company about its wood license for the nearby Crossroot Forest moving forward. Rickford is conceding that the sale of the facility is a private matter between Resolute and River's Edge, but he says he was encouraged by Resolute's willingness to collaborate to ensure that the mill site can once again benefit the people of the area. And Rickford will be meeting with the Minister of Natural Resources and Forestry next week to look at the best options for modernizing the license for the Crossroot Forest. The remote First Nation of Gull Bay is one of just 4 communities in Ontario that may never be hooked up to the provincial power grid. But on Friday, they took the first steps forward to becoming self-sufficient by unveiling their new solar energy storage microgrid facility. Corey Nordstrom was in Gull Bay and he files this report.
This microgrid may represent the future of energy in remote First Nation communities. Gull Bay officials have unveiled Canada's first fully integrated, Indigenous-led renewable energy storage microgrid. Chief Wilfred King is looking forward to the good this will do for his community of 400.
This generation of diesel has caused enormous harm to our community. We want to get off it, and this is just the first step in getting off diesel generation. And our people have lived off the environment since time immemorial, and we still utilize the land quite extensively for hunting, fishing, trapping, berry picking, so forth.
Since the early 1960s, Gull Bay has relied upon diesel to power their homes. This project comes with a $9 million price tag, with funding from a number of sources, including both provincial and federal governments. OPG is another partner and has helped develop the microgrid for several years now. Regional Vice President Paul Giardotti says it was a difficult project to complete.
The solar grid actually works in conjunction with the diesel generation grid. When the sun comes out, it basically charges the batteries, and then when the sun goes behind the clouds, the batteries actually draw the power out, and the community uses that power, and then the diesel is used for backup.
National Chief Perry Bellegarde was on hand for the day's ceremony. He says it's exciting that this technology could be utilized by remote First Nations across Canada.
Using diesel it affects the environment in a negative way. So looking at solar, the sun's coming out, and now with the lithium-ion batteries, the storage, they've got the technology. They are leading the way, and I think they can show the leadership to other First Nations across Canada.
There's over 300 communities in Canada, remote communities that are still reliant on diesel generation, and we're willing to share our experiences, our knowledge, and with any community that wishes to replicate this in their community.
More than 1,000 of these solar panels have been erected, which has cut the diesel usage in Gull Bay by roughly a quarter. If the community wants to get fully off diesel, they need more energy storage, as well as a combination with other renewable energy sources. Corey Nordstrom, TBT News.
A former member of parliament for Thunder Bay Superior North is hoping to make a political comeback after he threw in his hat into the ring for the fall's federal election. Bruce Heyer is putting his name forward to be the Green Party's candidate in the riding that he used to represent. Heyer won the seat as an NDP candidate in 2008 and 2011 before crossing the floor to the Greens in 2013. 2 years later, Heyer lost the seat to Liberal Patty Hajdu, finishing a distant fourth as a Green candidate. He's now hoping to represent the party one more time and says his main priority remains the same.
To represent my constituents, not the party. The constituents will always come before the party. The next biggest crisis is the climate crisis. The Green Party is the only party that has a plan, that knows how to do it, that has been there since day one, and it's time that we need to deal with our climate crisis.
It appears Heyer will face at least one other contender for the nomination on August 20th, as Schreiber councillor Kim Krause has confirmed that he's also interested in running for the Greens in Thunder Bay Superior North. Over in Thunder Bay Rainy River, former provincial Green Party candidate Amanda Montajong and former City Council candidate Tracy McKinnon are reported to be interested in representing the Greens in that riding, but there's no word on when the nomination meeting will be held. A business in Dryden is looking to expand itself to offer cremation services for residents in the region. However, the location chosen has some residents urging the city not to amend the zoning bylaw as they have concerns over the emissions from the site and should it become operational. Adam Riley reports.
It's a discussion in Dryden which is heating up over a proposed expansion at a funeral home. The Dryden Community Funeral Home is looking to build a crematorium in hopes of improving service access for residents in the Northwest. According to proponent Kayla Jonason, bodies are currently taken to Beausejour, Manitoba for cremation, which adds hundreds of dollars to funeral costs.
Just a basic cremation, our cost anyway, is anywhere from $3,500 to $3,700, including tax. If we get the crematorium built, they're going to save right off the top $500 to $1,000.
However, there is some opposition from residents who live nearby, and they were out in full force at a public meeting regarding zoning for the expansion Monday. Brenda Bell is one resident set against the proposal. She lives within 200 meters of the site and says she isn't against the business itself, but the location for the expansion is the problem.
What we do worry about are the emissions that are admittedly going to be produced by the crematorium.
During her presentation to City Council later that evening, Bell provided this image of a crematorium spewing black smoke in Headingley, Manitoba. Jonason says modern crematoriums release only heat and vapors. She adds, without knowing the circumstances, she thinks that facility wasn't being operated properly.
It looks like maybe a malfunction of some sort. I mean, I'm not there, so I don't know exactly what would have happened. It actually, to me, looked like an actual fire.
Bell admits she hasn't reached out to the facility for the details regarding the image, despite making it part of the public record at City Council.
They could potentially be losing business to this crematorium here, so they may have a financial vested interest, and also I don't think they want any kind of negative press either.
Deputy Mayor Martin McKinnon says the delegation brought forward some very good points, and council must consider that in the decision-making process.
Whether there's validity to what they brought forward, or what our understanding of the Ministry of the Environment paperwork and layout is. So we got to compare all those and make sure we come up with the right decision. That's what it comes down to.
McKinnon adds council will have to make a decision very soon so the province can begin its environmental assessments of the project. Adam Riley, TBT News.
Northwest Region OPP are releasing more details about that bizarre case out of Fort Frances, in which a nurse was recently charged with murder in the death of an elderly patient over 3 years ago. The accused, 34-year-old Lindsay Coyle, was arrested last week and was released on bail on Wednesday. The former registered practical nurse was charged with second-degree murder, breach of trust, theft, and more in connection with the death of 76-year-old Hermina Fletcher. It happened back in January 2015 at the Lavendre Hospital in Fort Frances. The case changed from hospital death to one that was considered suspicious after police received information from the hospital. This week, the OPP revealed more about what led to their investigation.
We received information about a drug discrepancy and began this investigation. It led us to several charges, including second-degree murder. Well, this was a complex investigation, and we took the time necessary to complete a thorough and professional investigation.
Taylor Hertz says no other information will be made public until the case goes to trial. When we come back, after months of searching, the city of Dryden, it has a new fire chief. Stay tuned. A special meeting of council held in Dryden this week saw the city appoint its new fire chief. It comes after several high-profile incidents, including a revolt by the volunteer fire service in 2018 and the sudden resignation of the previous fire chief in April. As Ryan Bonazzo reports, the hiring marks a new beginning for the fire service.
With unanimous consent, a major vacancy has been filled at the city of Dryden. Rob Grimwood has officially taken command of the Dryden Fire Service. A career firefighter, Grimwood has more than 2 decades of experience across all aspects of fire service.
I started in 1996 and I've served a variety of roles and departments. I was a career firefighter with the City of Toronto for 8 years. I was with the town of Niagara-on-the-Lake for the entire 23, serving in every different rank. And I was the Fire Chief and Chief of Paramedic Services in Haldimand County for 10 years.
Not only will Grimwood take on the role of Fire Chief, but he's also been appointed as the Community Emergency Management Program Coordinator. He says that even with his experience from previous roles in Southern Ontario, the Northwest has its own set of challenges.
Dryden specifically, you know, it has its own hazards, industrial, regional airport, transportation, rail. Every municipality is a little different in terms of what the hazards are and how the fire service has to operate.
Grimwood takes over nearly a year and a half after a disagreement between the city and its volunteer fire service, which saw the city completely redesign how it operates the force, and 4 months after the former chief unexpectedly resigned with no explanation. Grimwood says he's aware of the challenges faced by the fire service over the last 18 months.
I feel that my role is to work with them. This is a big team, and they're the biggest. They're the biggest resource the fire department has is the volunteer firefighters.
Though they haven't yet met in person, Dryden Mayor Greg Wilson says he's excited to work with Grimwood.
We're headed in the right direction. We've got somebody who's experienced. I know that administration has done a lot of their homework. Well, they've done their homework, period. And they've come up with what we understand is a fine gentleman with lots of experience and ideas and enthusiasm. I'm confident that we're going to be pleasantly relieved and satisfied with the direction that he'll take us.
Ryan Bonazzo, TVT News.
The lobby group, which represents Northwestern Ontario hunters, says it's pleased with proposed changes to the moose hunting regulations that were released by the province this week. The recommendations from the Big Game Management Advisory Committee include changes to moose tag allocation, hunting quotas, and wildlife management. If adopted by the government, those recommendations would see fewer moose tags given out, at least in the short term, in order to ensure the sustainability of moose populations. John Complanis is the executive director of the Northwestern Ontario Sportsmen's Alliance, and he also chaired the Big Game Committee. Kaplanis says the changes respond to the concerns expressed by hunters across the province during the committee's consultations.
A lot of the recommendations that are put forth in this document are based on what we've already heard from hunters. So, you know, the uncontrolled harvest of calves across the province was a concern to many hunters. And the reason for that is they saw it as a detriment to the growth of the moose population. So, in that sense, we listen to moose hunters.
Kaplanis says hunters will be pleased by potential changes that would make the tag draw system simpler and fairer and reduce the costs for those who are unsuccessful in securing a tag. Other recommendations include expanding bows-only hunting periods and placing restrictions on party hunting. Dryden is on the forefront of lawn maintenance automation technology after a drone was introduced to cut the grass on several municipal properties last year. And despite initial safety concerns and fears that it would lead to job losses in the city, the auto mower has now become a popular addition to the community. Adam Riley has the details.
He's actually quite a sensation around town. You'll see the people from Princess Corridor or visitors to town stopping by to check him out and see what he's doing on City Hall's grounds.
Meet Dryden's new lawnmower drone, affectionately known as Leo. He is part of a pilot project to improve lawn maintenance on city property. The city introduced Leo to mow the lawn at City Hall, the police station, and at the Dryden Museum in June of last year. Public Works Operations Manager Colin Hawkins says Leo was able to handle both the wet and dry weather with relative ease and has been a model employee.
And incidentally, Auto Mower will work in the rain and late at night. He cuts right through the weekend and all through the night. He doesn't accomplish as much as a big Z-turn cut mower, but little by little, he surpasses all our expectations.
And despite a perceived fear that automation could put city employees out of the job, Hawkins says after the introduction of the Automower, it's actually quite the contrary.
The biggest thing is that it improves the service level. The staff that used to run the mowers at City Hall, now they come and help out Auto Mower. They'll move sticks out of the way so that it doesn't get hung up on sticks and fill in low spots in the grass and just generally keep the grounds a little bit better.
Another perceived fear is that Leo could easily be drone napped or injure someone on the grounds. But Hawkins says those fears were also unfounded.
He's GPS located, so if anybody was to walk away with him, we'd be showing up asking for him back at the house where he wound up. And for the most part, he errs on the side of caution. If there's youngsters on the lawn, he'll tend to just bounce into people and go back to his charging station.
Hawkins adds the blades are only 2 inches long and do not extend past the Automower's body. With 50-plus properties, the city is responsible for maintaining a price tag of $4,200 per drone, and the positive results yielded from just a single unit. Hawkins believes there is room to expand the Automower program in the future. Adam Riley, TBT News.
The Transportation Safety Board has issued a safety advisory to pilots and airlines across Canada following its investigation of a fatal crash near Kenora earlier this year. On March 30th, a Piper aircraft lost control and crashed into the ice on Snowshoe Lake. The pilot was killed and the lone passenger died in hospital 6 days later. A TSB probe found that the strut assembly had excessive corrosion, causing it to separate from the lower fork and attachment. U.S. aviation authorities had issued an airworthiness directive regarding Piper aircraft in 2015, recommending punch testing of the struts every 2 years as a way to check for corrosion. But after checking the parts on the Kenora aircraft, the TSB now says punch testing can be inconclusive, and it's recommending Transport Canada review its inspection methods for identifying the unsafe condition. Coming up after the break, music lovers gather in Red Rock for the 2019 Live from the Rock Folk Festival. Beautiful weather and an electric lineup of artists drew out a big crowd of music lovers to the North Shore of Lake Superior last weekend. The annual Live from the Rock Folk Festival in Red Rock was a big success for all ages. Alana Pickrell has the story.
Music from every folk genre could be heard in Red Rock with the 17th annual Live from the Rock Folk Festival. 72 performers hit the big stage during the 3 days, an event that Chair Laura Fold says was one of the most successful years yet.
We had a really incredible lineup. We had lots of infusions of world music, which was a big hit with our audience this year. So overall, the attendance was great. We had a record number of campers this year, which is also really exciting.
Although the final numbers have not been counted, Folds expected around 2,500 people came out to enjoy the performances. The audience was filled with music lovers of all ages, bringing generations together for a family fun weekend.
Good, I love it. We come here a lot with my grandparents and my mom and dad. I really like it because of all the music and the fun things we get to do.
Throughout the festival, 4 daytime stages were set up as well. Different workshops took place, giving artists a chance to collaborate with fans, an aspect that turned out to be a favorite for some of the music lovers here at the Red Rock Folk Festival.
Gives you a chance to interact more with the musicians and really get a sense as to sharing why you love the festival with them.
So we did a workshop where we worked with 2 artists and we split into 2 groups and we each created a theme song for this year.
The smaller, more personal Folk Fest gives the guests a chance to interact with the musicians, but the more intimate crowd and interactive aspects also benefits the artists.
We're given the opportunity to perform a number of times over the course of the weekend, and so you build a bit of a rapport with audiences and with the different performers going on, and people become very familiar with what we're doing, and so you end up getting a bit of a micro following within the festival itself, which is just terrific.
Looking ahead, organizers are already planning ways to make next year another big success. Alana Pickrell, TVT News.
And that'll do it for this edition of Northwest Newsweek. I'm Nima Rajan, and we'll catch you next time.